My mother looked at the glossy magazine spread, her smile as pristine as the touched-up photograph. The future of Blackwood Creek, my brother, Leo, called it, raising a glass of champagne. The photo showed the two of them standing on the porch of the farmhouse, bathed in golden hour light, looking like landed gentry. I wasn't in the picture. I was 100 yards away, wrestling a broken pump in the irrigation ditch, covered in mud they'd specifically asked me to handle right then. I didn't see the article until the next day, when I found the magazine lying on the kitchen table, a sticky ring of coffee staining the cover. I flipped to the feature. There they were, my family. And then I read the quote from my brother that stopped my heart. "We're moving on from the simple manual labor of the past," he said. "The new Blackwood is about a curated, high-end experience. It's about vision, not just toil." That night, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I made a few calls, and at 4 a.m, under the light of a full moon, I didn't just walk away from the farm. I took the entire harvest with me. The rage that followed wasn't hot. It was cold and sharp, like a shard of glass in my gut. This wasn't a sudden betrayal. It was the final perfectly executed move in a game I hadn't even realized I was losing so badly. For years, my life had been Blackwood Creek Farm. It wasn't just a place. It was my entire identity, a living legacy I had poured my soul into. I woke with the sun, my hands raw from pulling weeds, my boots permanently caked in the rich, dark soil my father had taught me to love. He was the one who believed in this place, who saw it not as a business asset, but as a living, breathing part of our family. When he passed away 3 years ago, he left the farm to all of us. But he left the knowledge of it to me. He taught me the rhythm of the seasons, the language of the crops, the delicate balance of the ecosystem. He'd say, "Clara, this land doesn't belong to us. We belong to it." After he was gone, my mother, Eleanor, and my brother Leo saw things differently. Leo had escaped to the city for college, armed with a business degree and a vocabulary filled with words like synergy, optimization, and brand activation. He came back not as a son returning to his roots, but as a CEO staging a corporate takeover. My mother, who had always been more concerned with the appearance of being a farm owner than the actual work of it, was his willing accomplice. They saw my passion for organic, sustainable farming, the very principles my father championed, as quaint and unprofitable. They wanted an agritourism destination, a place with a wine bar, a wedding venue, and a gift shop selling overpriced jam in artisan jars. They wanted the aesthetic of a farm without the sweat and struggle that made it real. I was the sweat and struggle. I was the 4 a.m. wake-up calls to protect the heirloom tomatoes from a late frost. I was the one negotiating with local chefs who valued the quality of our produce. I was the one who spent winters poring over seed catalogs and soil reports, planning the year ahead. I was, in Leo's words, the toil. My days were a blur of physical labor, a constant cycle of planting, tending, and harvesting. I'd come in at dusk, exhausted and sore, to find them on the porch, sipping iced tea and discussing font choices for a new logo. "Clara, you really should clean up before you come inside," my mother would say, wrinkling her nose at the dirt under my fingernails. "We might have investors stopping by." Leo would nod, looking up from his laptop. "Perception is reality, Clara. We need to project success. My success, the tangible result of my work. Crates overflowing with vibrant vegetables. The hum of bees in the clover fields I'd planted was invisible to them. It was just the crude raw material for their grand vision. The tension had been building for months. A low hum of discontent beneath the surface of our daily lives. It wasn't in loud arguments, but in quiet dismissals. When I proposed a new composting system to enrich the soil naturally, Leo called it inefficient and ordered a truckload of chemical fertilizer. We need predictable yields, not a science experiment, he'd said, not looking at me, but at a spreadsheet on his screen. When I wanted to invest the profits from the farmer's market into a new greenhouse for winter greens, my mother insisted the money go toward renovating the guest bathroom. Imagine the kind of clientele we could attract with a clawfoot tub, she'd mused. Every idea I had, every piece of knowledge I tried to share, was treated as the babbling of a sentimental child. I was the farm's engine, but they had their hands on the steering wheel, and they were driving us straight toward a cliff. I was a ghost in my own home, a farmhand on the land my father had entrusted to me. They talked around me, over me, through me. I'd sit at the dinner table while they discussed marketing strategies and potential partnerships. My own contributions to the conversation brushed aside. I remember one evening. I was excited because I had secured a lucrative contract with a high-end restaurant in the city for our microgreens. It was a huge win, a testament to the quality I had painstakingly cultivated. When I announced it, Leo barely looked up. "That's nice, Clara. Operational income is good, but we need to be thinking about capital investment. Did you see the quote for the new paved driveway?" My victory was reduced to a footnote in his grand business plan. The isolation was suffocating. I felt like I was speaking a different language, one rooted in soil and seasons, while they spoke only in dollars and cents. I was the past they were trying to erase. The Valley Living magazine feature was supposed to be the turning point, or so they told me. "This is for all of us, Clara," my mother had said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "It's to celebrate the Blackwood Creek legacy." They spent a week preparing, not by weeding or tending to the crops, but by staging the farmhouse. They bought new rustic chic furniture, arranged wildflowers in mason jars, and hired a stylist to pick out their outfits. They looked like actors on a set, playing the roles of sophisticated farmers. The day of the shoot, the writer and photographer arrived, and I was introduced, almost as an afterthought, as Clara, who helps us out with the day-to-day. Just as the interview was about to start, Leo came to me with a manufactured crisis. "The main irrigation pump is making a horrible noise, Clara. It sounds like it's about to explode. You're the only one who knows its quirks. Can you please fix it? The whole West Field depends on it." His eyes were wide with feigned panic. I knew that pump. It wasn't going to explode. But I did my duty. I went. I spent the next 2 hours with my arms deep in greasy water and mud, coaxing the old machine back to life. By the time I returned to the house, filthy and sweating, the photographer was packing up his gear. My mother gave me a look of mild disgust. "Oh dear, you missed everything. We tried to wait." That was the moment the first crack appeared in my carefully constructed denial. I knew with a sickening certainty that I had been deliberately excluded. The next morning, I saw the proof in print. The article was a masterpiece of propaganda. It was titled, "The New Dawn at Blackwood Creek, how visionary siblings are reimagining a family legacy. It painted Leo as a prodigal son, a brilliant strategist who had returned from the city to save his family's charming but outdated farm. It praised my mother's impeccable taste and unwavering support. There were beautiful photos of them laughing on the porch, of Leo pointing thoughtfully at a distant field, of my mother holding a perfect, blemish-free tomato like it was a precious jewel. I was mentioned once, a single line in the 7th paragraph, assisted by their dedicated farmhand, Clara. The family is working hard to bring this new vision to life. A farmhand? In my own home, on my own land. But the final blow, the one that shattered me, was the quote at the end. The writer asked Leo about the future, and he delivered the line that he must have rehearsed 100 times. We're moving on from the simple, manual labor of the past. The new Blackwood is about a curated, high-end experience. It's about vision, not just toil. Toil. He had summarized my life, my father's life, my entire existence, as an inconvenient, primitive chore that his brilliant vision would now render obsolete. The world narrowed to that single, insulting word. Everything I had sacrificed, every ounce of love and labor I had poured into that soil, was just toil. That night, something inside me didn't just snap. It crystallized. The years of quiet resentment, of being overlooked and undervalued, solidified into a cold, clear purpose. I didn't rage. I didn't pack a bag and run. I sat at the old wooden desk in my small room, the same desk where my father used to sketch out his planting schedules, and I opened my ledger. For years, while Leo and my mother handled the farm's main bank account, I had managed the direct-to-consumer side of the business, the farmers' markets, the CSA boxes, and the relationships with local restaurants. These were my clients. They knew me, not Leo. They trusted the quality of the produce that I personally grew and delivered. They paid me through separate channels, accounts I had set up myself for operational flexibility, as I'd once explained it to a disinterested Leo. The harvest was at its peak. This was the moment the farm made most of its liquid income for the year. The specialty crops, the 7 varieties of heirloom tomatoes, the purple-streaked basil, the delicate squash blossoms the chefs adored, were all ready. This was the curated experience they were selling, and it was all a product of my toil. I started making calls. My first was to Miguel, a man who ran a small independent trucking company. "Migs, it's Clara. I've got a big job for you. An unusual one. I need you and 2 of your guys at the West Gate at 4 a.m. No questions asked. Cash on the spot." He didn't hesitate. "For you, Clara. We'll be there at 3:45. Next, I called Chef Antoine at the Gilded Sparrow. "Antoine, change of plans. I'm doing a private sale on this year's harvest. Everything. You get first pick if you can meet me tomorrow with a refrigerated van. It'll be half your usual price." I could hear his sharp intake of breath. "Everything? Clara, what's going on?" I kept my voice steady. "Just a little restructuring. Are you in?" He was in. I spent the next 4 hours on the phone. A quiet whirlwind of logistics. I called every chef, every CSA member, every market manager on my list. I offered them the deal of a lifetime on the best produce they'd get all year. I arranged a central meeting point in town, a friend's warehouse, where the exchange would happen. I wasn't stealing from the farm. The farm as a legal entity would eventually get its money, a fraction of the value, which I would deposit from my personal account later. What I was stealing was their narrative, their launchpad, their vision. I was taking the tangible, beautiful result of my work and liquidating it on my own terms, leaving them with an empty stage. As the first hint of dawn touched the sky, Miguel's trucks rolled silently up the dirt track. My friends, the ones who had seen how I was treated for years, showed up in pickups. Under the moon we worked. We harvested everything of value. Crates of tomatoes, boxes of herbs, baskets of peppers. We worked in silence, a focused, determined team. We left the fields of potatoes and feed corn untouched. They could have the bulk commodities. I was taking the art. By sunrise, the trucks were gone, and the prime fields were bare. I walked back to my room, transferred a lump sum into the farm's account, a fraction of the real value, and packed a single bag. Then I sat on my bed and waited for them to wake up and discover what a future without toil really looked like. This wasn't a rash decision. It was an echo of a choice I should have made a decade ago. I was 18, top of my class, with a full scholarship to study agricultural science at Cornell. I remember the day the acceptance letter came. My father wept with pride. He held the letter in his calloused hands like it was a holy relic. "You're going to change the world, Clara," he'd whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're going to learn everything and bring it back here. You're the future of this place." It was the happiest day of my life. That evening, my mother sat me down on that same porch where she would one day pose for her magazine photos. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't forbid me from going. She was much more clever than that. "Clara, darling," she began, her voice soft and laced with a carefully measured sorrow. "Your father is so proud. We all are. But I have to be honest with you. He's not as young as he used to be." She looked out over the fields, her expression one of profound, noble worry. "This farm, it's too much for him alone. Leo is gone, finding his way. He's not built for this life. You are. You have your father's hands, his heart. If you leave now—" She let the sentence hang in the air, a beautiful poisonous vine. "I'm just so afraid the stress will break him. We need you here. The farm needs you. Your duty is here, with a family that loves you." She painted a picture of me as the selfless savior, the dutiful daughter holding the family legacy together, while my brother was off in the world. She made sacrifice sound like a virtue, like the noblest choice I could possibly make. And I, an 18-year-old girl who loved her father more than anything, fell for it completely. I saw the fatigue in his eyes, the way he moved a little slower each year. My mother's words preyed on my love and my guilt. I turned down the scholarship. I broke my father's heart, though he never said it. He tried to hide his disappointment, telling me, "Well, there's no better teacher than the land itself." But I saw the light in his eyes dim a little that day. I chose them. I chose the farm. I sacrificed my future for theirs, on the promise that this legacy was something we were building together. That single, manipulative conversation was the foundation for the next 10 years of my life. It was the original sin. The article. The insult. It wasn't the beginning of their betrayal. It was just the moment They finally stopped pretending. My pre-dawn harvest wasn't an act of revenge. It was me, 10 years too late, finally accepting my scholarship. The explosion came around 8 a.m. I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel path outside my small cabin, on the edge of the property, followed by the slamming of a car door. My mother's voice, shrill and panicked, cut through the morning air. "Leo, they're gone. Everything is gone. The tomatoes, the herbs. It's all been picked clean." I didn't move. I just sat on my bed, listening. A moment later, there was a furious pounding on my door. It wasn't a knock. It was a demand. I opened it to find my brother standing there, his face a mask of purple rage. My mother was behind him, wringing her hands, her face blotchy with tears. "What did you do?" Leo spat the words at me. He didn't wait for an answer, pushing past me into my small room. His eyes scanned the space, landing on the single duffel bag by my bed. "You're a thief. I knew it. I knew you were ungrateful, but I never thought you'd do this. I'm calling the sheriff." I leaned against the doorframe, my arms crossed. For the first time in my life, I felt no fear of him, no intimidation. "Go ahead," I said, my voice calm and even. "Tell them what happened. Tell them your farmhand sold the produce she grew to the clients she cultivated. What crime is that, exactly?" My mother rushed forward. "Clara, how could you? After everything we've done for you, we gave you a home. We let you live here." "You let me work here," I corrected her gently. "You let me pour my life into this land, while you planned how to sell it out from under me. I read the article, Mom." Her face paled. The performance faltered. That was just for the magazine," she stammered. "You know how these things are. It's about marketing. It's about vision, not just toil," I quoted, looking directly at Leo. "That's what you said, isn't it?" "Well, I decided to apply your business philosophy. I optimized my assets. I leveraged my key partnerships. I liquidated my inventory to maximize profit." I used his own empty corporate jargon against him, and each word was a small satisfying stone hitting its mark. He stared at me, speechless for a moment, the rage in his eyes being replaced by a dawning, horrified understanding. He wasn't dealing with his simple, dirt-stained sister anymore. He was dealing with a competitor. "This is our farm," he finally roared, finding his voice. "The profits belong to the business." "And the business will get its share," I replied coolly. "I deposited $10,000 into the farm account this morning. That should more than cover the cost of the seeds and fertilizer. The rest? That's my back pay. For 10 years of labor, for a forfeited scholarship, for being your toil while you played at being tycoons. Consider it my severance package." That's when the real manipulation began. My mother started to sob, real tears this time, tears of frustration and loss of control. "Your father," she choked out. "Your father would be so ashamed of you. He loved this place. You're destroying his memory." The words were meant to be a dagger, but for the first time, they didn't penetrate. "No," I said, my voice hardening. "You're the ones who are destroying his memory. Dad believed in this soil. He believed in honest work. He believed in me. He never would have called my life's work simple manual labor. He would have been standing right beside me at 4 a.m., helping me load the trucks. You took his legacy and turned it into a brand. You turned his home into a venue. Don't you dare speak to me about my father. I walked over to my desk and picked up the folded, yellowed scholarship letter from Cornell. I had kept it all these years, a secret reminder of the life I had given up. I held it out to her. This is what you took from me. Not just an education, but a future. You did it because you were scared. Scared Dad couldn't manage, and scared you'd have to get your own hands dirty. You used my love for him to trap me here. Well, the trap is broken. I'm done being the foundation you build your dreams on. From now on, you can do your own damn toiling. I brushed past them, picked up my bag, and walked out the door. I didn't look back. I could hear my mother start to wail, a long theatrical cry of despair. It was the sound of her world, the one built on my silence and my sacrifice, finally starting to crumble. The aftermath was a chaotic ripple effect. My first stop was the warehouse of my friend, Sarah, who had let me use the space as a distribution hub. The chefs and market managers were already there, their vans and trucks lined up. It was a surreal scene, a clandestine farmer's market in an industrial park. When I walked in, they didn't bombard me with questions. They just looked at me, a silent understanding passing between us. They had all dealt with my family before. They had heard Leo's condescending pitches and my mother's vague, flowery promises. They knew who did the real work. Chef Antoine clapped me on the shoulder. "It's about time, Clara," he said with a grim smile. Within 3 hours, every last crate was sold. I had a bag filled with cash and checks, more money than I had ever held in my life. It felt heavy, not with guilt, but with the weight of possibility. I couldn't go back to the farm, obviously. Sarah insisted I stay with her. Her small guest room felt like a palace. That first night, I slept for 12 hours straight. A deep, dreamless sleep, free from the anxiety that had been my constant companion for years. The rumors started the next day. I heard from a friend who worked at the local diner that my mother had been in, telling anyone who would listen that I'd had a complete mental breakdown, that I'd destroyed the crops in a fit of jealous rage. Leo, ever the strategist, was trying a more legalistic approach. I got a call from a lawyer I'd never heard of, informing me that Blackwood Creek LLC was considering legal action for the unauthorized removal of company assets. I told him to send any correspondence to my new P.O. box and hung up. The real fallout, however, was with their vision. The feature in Valley Living had just hit the stands, and it was generating buzz. A week after my departure, they were scheduled to host a launch party at the farm for potential investors and local influencers. The grand unveiling of the new Blackwood Creek. They had catering arranged, a string quartet hired, and a whole presentation planned around the farm-to-table experience. Except now, there was no farm-to-table. The fields were barren of anything impressive. They had potatoes, and that was about it. I heard from one of the caterers that my mother had called him in a panic, trying to buy back some of the produce. He politely refused. His loyalty was to the person who grew it. The party was, by all accounts, a disaster. They had to source their vegetables from a commercial supplier, and the local chefs they'd invited as guests could tell the difference immediately. The string quartet played to a nearly empty lawn. The investors, who had come to see a thriving, high-end agricultural enterprise, were shown empty fields and given a clumsy presentation by a flustered Leo about supply chain disruptions. The whole curated image they had spent months and thousands of dollars building collapsed in a single evening. The buzz died. The investors backed away. All they were left with was a half-finished renovation, a pile of debt, and a reputation for being all talk. My single act of rebellion hadn't just taken the harvest. It had taken their credibility, the one thing they valued more than anything. I was living in a small spare room, but I was free. They were standing in a big, empty farmhouse, trapped in the ruins of their own ambition. In the quiet weeks that followed, living out of a duffel bag in Sarah's guest room, I had a lot of time to think. I replayed the last 10 years in my head, not with anger, but with a strange clinical detachment. I realized that my family didn't operate on love. They operated on leverage. My love for my father was leverage. My sense of duty was leverage. My labor was leverage. I was never a daughter or a sister. I was a resource to be managed. Walking away wasn't just about the money or the insult. It was about revoking their access to me on every level. The true legacy my father left me wasn't the land. It was his spirit. A spirit of integrity, of quiet strength, of a deep and abiding respect for the natural world. It was a legacy of doing things the right way, even when it's the hard way. My mother and brother had tried to warp that legacy into a shallow marketing slogan. They thought the farm was the prize, but they were wrong. The prize was the resilience, the knowledge, the work ethic, and I had taken all of that with me. Family, I learned, isn't just about the blood you share. It's about the respect you give. It's about seeing each other as whole people, not as tools to achieve your own goals. My real family turned out to be the friends who showed up at 4 a.m. with their pickup trucks, no questions asked. It was Sarah who gave me a key to her house and told me to stay as long as I needed. It was Chef Antoine who called me a week later not to ask for produce, but to ask if I was okay. These were the people who saw my value, not as a farmhand, but as Clara. They were the ones who shared my values of loyalty and hard work. The farm, the house, the name. I had lost it all. But in losing it, I had found the one thing I'd been missing for a decade. Myself. I realized I could carry my father's spirit with me anywhere. It didn't need to be tied to those specific acres of land. I could plant a new garden anywhere. And this time, it would be all mine. So what now? That's the question I asked myself every morning for a month. The money from the harvest was sitting in a new bank account, a number on a screen that felt both unreal and electrifying. It was my escape fund, my seed money, my declaration of independence. I didn't squander it. I lived simply, helping Sarah with her own landscaping business, earning my keep, and thinking. The legal threats from Leo eventually fizzled out. His lawyer likely told him that a messy public lawsuit against his mentally unstable sister for selling vegetables would do more damage to their already tarnished brand than it was worth. The silence from the farm was absolute. One day, I took a portion of the money and put a down payment on a 5-acre plot of neglected land about an hour away. It was overgrown with weeds, the soil was compacted, and the small dilapidated barn on the property looked like one strong wind could take it down. It was perfect. It was a blank slate. It was all mine. There was no legacy to live up to. No ghost to honor except the one I chose to carry in my own heart. I spent the first week just walking the land, getting the feel of the soil under my feet, watching the way the sun moved across the sky. I wasn't Clara from Blackwood Creek anymore. I was just Clara, founder, owner, and sole employee of my own, as yet unnamed future. I live in a small trailer on the property for now. It's not glamorous. The water pressure is a joke, and I'm pretty sure a family of mice is subletting under the floorboards. But every morning, I wake up, make a cup of coffee, and look out at my fields. They're still mostly weeds, but I've started to till the first acre. My hands are sore again, my boots are muddy, and I'm exhausted every night. And I have never, ever been happier. It's my toil. It's my vision. The two are finally one and the same. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll fail spectacularly. Maybe this time next year I'll be bankrupt. But it will be my failure, on my terms. And that feels more like success than anything I ever experienced at Blackwood Creek. I want to leave you with this. When people use the word family to justify disrespect, to demand sacrifice without appreciation, to hold you hostage with guilt, they are not talking about family. They are talking about control. Breaking away is the hardest, most painful thing you will ever do. It will feel like you are cutting off a limb. But it is also the only way to grow back whole. If you're out there, feeling like a means to someone else's end, feeling like your contributions are just toil, to be erased, please know that your work has value. Your vision matters, and you have the right to own it. So, I want to ask you all, and please be honest in the comments. What's a promise you made to yourself that you're finally ready to keep? Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates from my new, very weedy but very hopeful piece of the world.